Hello, angels. Feels nice to say that. Into the camera again. Back on YouTube. It's been a minute, as it tends to be for me sometimes, since the Pusha T video, the Clips video that I dropped a few months ago. I've been pretty active on TikTok and on Instagram and YouTube Shorts, making little reels, talking about new albums, my favorite singles of the week. But now it's time to make a proper goddamn video again. And that's because in the blink of an eye, we are nearing the end of 2025. It is December. All of the big publications are already like mass dropping their lists December 1st and 2nd for their favorite albums and songs, etc. Which I am going to eventually do as well. However, I am just one girl, so it's going to take me some time. But in the meantime, we are going to do some of the shorter lists and get them out of the way first, starting with my favorite EPs of the year. I've never actually done this in a video format, like a proper filmed video format. And that's because my opinions on EPs have kind of gone back and forth in terms of how seriously, I suppose, I've treated them. But to allow me the opportunity for a brief diatribe, I felt that the EP has been pretty important these last couple of years. Despite the fact that it's all but disappeared from the mainstream because streaming incentivizes these longer projects, the EP continues to be the format through which I find and am able to be early on some of my favorite artists. Just in the last 5 years or so alone, there's tons of artists like Squid or Chatpile, whose early EPs got a foot in the door with me and the music critics alert enough to hear them, and that rules. So this year, like in many list pasts, there won't be a whole ton of huge artists or artists that a ton of people are really familiar with, just because they don't really use the EP format that much. But I think it was as useful as ever this year to indulge in some EPs, and enough of them really wowed me that I wanted to make this list and make it a proper video. The one contentious part in this then becomes, how do you define what an EP is? I've done my best to try and find a sort of common consensus, and for that reason, this Euboa project right here, that is like a mini album, officially marketed as an album by her label, The Flinzer, will not be appearing on this list. It will be on the albums list, but other projects with contentious definitions do pop up on this list. I really just tried my best to see where I thought they fit in. And if you take issue with any of my decisions to classify these as EPs, rest assured that even if they were albums, any of the 10 projects I'm going to talk about probably would have landed on my albums of the year list. I tried to be cute here and grab some EPs from my record collection: Arctic Monkeys, Moses Sumney, Maruha, Charlie XCX. I had more than I realized. It really sneaks up on you how many EPs join your record collection, apparently. That's not important, though. We've wasted too much time already. Just get to the fucking list. My name is Lavender Alexandria, and these are my top 10 EPs of 2025. Boom. And we're going to jump right into it with a harsh introduction right out of the gate. I am talking Screamo, The Courage of Shutting Up. A Screamo band from Texas who first made their way to me through word of mouth, the way that so many different bands from so many scenes eventually do. And this EP is their first collection, their first release of like recorded studio material, their first official release, and it's pretty good. I would not say this is a project with a really easily defined gimmick or anything. They're not doing anything wacky conceptually. They're not fusing it with other genres in a weird way. I think their influences are aligned with a lot of contemporary Screamo bands. I would cite Foxtails as an influence, but if you're a fan of Screamo, you're going to hear these guys and think of a myriad of different bands that they're stylistically akin to. But what that means is that these songs are a little bit more compositionally playful than the 2000s and 90s screamo ilk that inspired the bands who inspired this band. And I think that's really cool. I think they make good use of it, despite the fact that it's obviously an EP. It's a relatively short project. It goes a lot of different places emotionally, and it finds ways compositionally to make its most gut-wrenching emotional moments really stand out. As someone who listens to a lot of first EPs from a lot of screamo bands, this one definitely felt like it kind of rose to the top, and I think the attention that it's gotten is no surprise, given when you listen to it, there's clearly something special that they're dabbling with. At number 9, we're going to be keeping up the trend of listener hostile music with Minnesota death and black metal band Suffering Hour and their new EP, Impelling Rebirth. Okay, so it's no secret that I am a pretty big fan of black metal. That's definitely the metal subgenre that I live the most in, which is why I was first turned on to these guys with their sophomore album back in 2021, because what I think they do is, again, interesting and unique for a genre that could feel so insular not that long ago, but has exploded into so many different amazing directions. And some people will honestly hear this album and think that the signifiers of death metal are actually a lot more clear than those of black metal. And I kind of see that argument. This band is interesting in the way that they can be very frenetic and shrill in a very black metal style, but the attitude and some of the performances are hefty, grueling, gross, and brooding in a death metal sense. And the way that they bring those two influences together is really interesting. If you're the kind of person who's stumbled onto and continued to watch this video and you're familiar with some of the nuances and ways that these metal subgenres cross over, I don't think the band will really be doing anything that will blow your mind. But what I really like about this EP is the rapid fire succession of its track listing. This is a band whose past material has dabbled in the expanded scope and even dark theatricality that is so enticing to so many people about a lot of subgenres of metal. And I love that shit. I am absolutely vulnerable to a metal record that is too big for its own thoughts. But this is very, very different. 5 tracks, just 14 minutes, and there is hardly room to breathe at any point. Honestly, what it kind of reminded me of is the band Nails, because though they're stylistically very different, what Suffering Hour are doing here is just pummeling you, just crushing you. The moments in between the songs feel so brief, but it is your only opportunity to escape the brooding demeanor of this EP. It is a little bit punishing at times. It is not easy, but goddamn, did I just keep coming back to it over and over again. This is definitely the metal EP of the year that I listened to the most and wanted to familiarize myself with the most, because I just think as a listening experience across 14 minutes, it's just infectious in how uninviting the presentation is. At number 8, wow, super weird and contentious one that is already dividing people and will probably only continue to. That is Julian Casablancas of The Strokes' side project, The Voids, with Megs of Ram. Okay, so to preface this, I've been a pretty big fan of The Voids as long as they've existed. I thought that their 2014 debut album was a really weird, dark, bizarre, underrated gem. It's been a favorite of mine. They had a little bit of a breakthrough on their sophomore record and garnered a lot of critical acclaim. But in 2024, my goodness, did they release a weird, and I'll say it again, divisive third record, one that felt a little bit inspired by some similar things from the most recent Strokes album, but also with some of the electronic ambition of Julian's 2008 solo album, or was it 2009? Although it was fed into all of his very strangest ambitions, and there are some really staunch defenders of this record, and there's some people who absolutely can't stand it. I'm kind of in the middle, which is why I was so surprised to absolutely adore Megs of Ram. Yeah, this surprise little EP over here touches on some similar sonic ideas as the last record, the weird meandering compositions, the combination of indie rock with weird keyboard and synth rock, the vocal effects that are just lathered the fuck on. It is as weird as any Void's release, but especially the 1, 2, 3 run of songs that start this thing off, I just find them infectious. All of a sudden, whereas on their last studio album, the Void sounded like they were trying to out-weird themselves at every turn, the foundations of these still very weird songs are just much hookier, much catchier. I certainly wouldn't call them inviting, but they are memorable in a way that I liked quite a bit. This is never an EP that I would have predicted would land on this list, but it surprised me, and maybe it'll surprise you too. At number 7, we have a eulogy in the form of an EP. British indie rock band Porridge Radio announcing their breakup with a final collection of their last 4 songs on this EP, The Machine Starts to Sing. You lie very still. It won't happen to you. Now, I'll admit that I've never been quite as head over heels for Porridge Radio's material as some. There are people who really, really see them as kind of a defining indie band of this era. And even though I wouldn't give them that much praise, I think they're rock solid. And I thought that their 4th and now we know final album last year was decent as well. But honestly, this was another EP that climbed over my expectations. And there's a few reasons why. The more intimate, the quieter Porridge Radio moments had never really hit me that hard, but this EP features a couple of the very best of them. But what it features more than anything is its title track, The Machine Starts to Sing, which truly and honestly may be my favorite song that the band has ever released. It is truly worth hearing, and I think once you do, you might be so spellbound you just let the rest of the EP autoplay. At number 6, I'm going to keep this one short and sweet. It is the politically righteous, sonically playful punk ragers MS Paint with their EP No Separation. I saw an angel last night, doused in gasoline, flowers grew from their skin. If you watch my best debut albums of the year videos or listen to the albums I recommend in those videos, you might recognize MS Paint from 2023, where their debut Post-American was really, really interesting to me because I think it played off of the foundations of punk music, both thematically in its rebellious attitude and sonically in its DIY, explosive, confrontational demeanor. They're sometimes described as a synth punk band, but I actually don't really love that for them because I think their deployment of synthesizers is just so subtle in the way that it plays back into punk stylings. I think they do it without fundamentally changing the ethos of their genre, and this EP is a sort of follow-up to that debut album that really truly picks up right where it left off. I like it just as much. The thunderous intensity, the lyricism, which will certainly leave you with a lot to ponder and to be fucking angry about. This does everything that I would want a punk project to do, and it doesn't waste any time with anything superfluous. I think it's awesome. At number 5, we're dipping back into the Screamo well. It won't be the last time, although this time we are going to take it back to the classics, to the 90s, with this new Satia EP, Tendrils. This is kind of an amazing moment for any Screamo fan like myself. This is a band that was around for just a few years in the late 90s. They don't have a whole ton of material to their name, but after the sort of dissolution of the band in the 2000s, they became retroactively a pretty influential and beloved piece of the Screamo scene. They're certainly a band that I was recommended by several older Screamo fans when I was going to local shows and getting into contemporary Screamo bands of people my age. This band and their sort of compilation catalog was thrown my way several times. Which is why I thought it was so cool that a few years ago they reunited and began playing shows together. And these 3 tracks, which have now materialized, this EP, represent their first new material in like 20 fucking years. And yeah, it's great. They're very much doing a classic Screamo thing, none of the new shit. And, you know, I love the new shit. It's fine. I love the fusion of genres. But if you're fucking Saetia and, you know, you did this, you have the right to continue doing it. And you know what? It fucking rules. Especially the lead single for this thing, 3 Faces Past, which was the first song to come out and got the signifier of being their first new material in this whole long gap. And yeah, wow, it fucking rules. It's really hard to contextualize the hype for this if you're outside of the Screamo bubble. But yeah, the fact that they returned like this and their live shows were well reviewed, their music seemed to be pretty well received, I think it's awesome. And I think this is a great EP to jump into for old Screamo fans, new Screamo fans, and even non-Screamo fans alike. So at number 4, we're going to get a little electronica with it, a genre that I feel like has often thrived with the EP, though I didn't hear a whole ton this year that really blew my mind. This one definitely did, though, getting into some truly weird shit. And that's with the Igloo Ghost EP, Bronze Claw ISO.
Hey, I can feel it in my throat. It collided with my teeth and then they broke.
Okay, so if you don't know who Igloo Ghost is, there's too much time to give all of the context. He's been through several very distinct sonic moments in his career, from this super jittery jungle and drum and bass inspired early days to a very divisive 2021 album that dabbled in a lot of really intense texture and sort of discordant sounds before returning last year with a much more dance-focused record, although one that is just grimy, raw as shit, and very metallic in a lot of its sampling. And metallic is the theme of this record over here, if you couldn't tell from the album cover. Igloo Ghost, also a highly conceptual artist for the genre of music that he makes. If you're a fan long enough to remember his breakthrough album, the EP that preceded it, the 2 EPs that followed it, you'll know about the actual like Igloo Ghost like characters, like the witches and the worms and all of the weird lore shit surrounding that. I actually got the chance to review this new EP in Ringtone Magazine this year. Self-plug, check it out if you want to. But that means that I had to familiarize myself with the lore, which Igloo Ghost, the man, the artist, claims. I have no idea how much of this or any of it is true, but he claims that this construction job that he was apparently working on the side, despite being a super famous DJ, introduced him to a weird beef and a weird scene of people making like industrial like dance music, like machinery like cranes and excavators and shit dance music. And that whole experience is where this music comes from and where it was recorded. And that whole experience, and even sneaking on to construction sites, is how this material came to be. Super fucking bizarre. Even though it's probably all just bullshit that feeds into the concept of this album, which is very metallic and industrial, electronic, and dance music, it is admittedly extremely fun and genuinely heightens the listening experience. Plus, everything else that I love about Igloo Ghost as a creator, as someone who has such a command of beats and texture, is still present on this EP. Plus, this lyrical theme that kind of worships machinery and sort of treats life as just imperfect viscera. It's awesome. It's fucking, this thing rules. At number 3, we are getting a little bedroom pop and rock and emo, especially on the really depressed lyrical front, all coming together into a absolutely fascinating project from Drug Bug with the EP Sometimes It Gets Worse. So Drug Bug is the solo project of one of the members or contributors to Willie Rodriguez Was Taken, if you're familiar with that group. And there was actually a Drug Bug album closer to the start of the year, back in March, I think. But this EP is what really got my attention and seems to have gotten a lot of people's attention, because when I talk about Drug Bug's music, this EP is always what comes up. And that's because it's a really spectacular blend of sounds and styles that plays so well into its bedroom lo-fi DIY recording. Everything that gets recorded on a couch or is enjoyed by transgenders gets compared to Car Seat Headrest, but I would argue that this EP does a lot to earn that comparison in its playful approach to genre, its unwavering vulnerability, and the way that it can reach these blasted, distorted, dizzying emotional highs. Or I guess emotional lows, if you're paying enough attention to the lyrics to realize just how depressing of a project this can be at points. And it can be really hard to tell that because the music is surprisingly agreeable and enjoyable for a record this jagged in its fulls. The two stunning highlights that I just can't get enough of being Kerosene and Red Velvet. The former, which has a very gritty tone for most of its runtime, but the latter, Red Velvet, is almost stunningly inviting out of the gate. It is beautiful, summery. It sounds like someone slipped like a Lemon Twigs song onto this EP, which is great. And even though it eventually sort of recalibrates to the demeanor of the rest of the album, it never loses that brightness and that appeal. This record may sound like a lot of music that you've heard before if you traffic in this kind of DIY style and scene, but a lot of the extra instrumentation and the deployment, the playful deployment of composition and genre throughout this makes it really, really interesting, and more importantly, really, really unique, and has me frankly on the edge of my seat for what Drug Bug is going to do next, because I think if you can take what you learned from this EP and push forward into a bigger project that is this good, wow, it certainly would have me talking, and probably a lot of other people. At number 2, we are continuing with what can very loosely be called singer-songwriter music, though it has nothing sonically similar with Drug Bug. We are going to British indie pop and indie folk darling Nilufer Yonya with her EP Dancing Shoes. I first covered Nilufer Yonya like 3 or 4 years ago when she dropped an album that got quite a bit of attention. I thought it was good, not great, but her follow-up last year is stunning. And though it is an amazing record, it's one that's difficult to talk about in a way that properly sets your expectations for how good it is, because it is a singer-songwriter record. It is good because her voice and some of the more naturalistic instrumentation contrast so well with some of the colder elements of the production and instrumentation here. The beats and the sort of chilly ambience that she is singing into so often, the two sides come together to create something that is just so magnetic and so consistent as she finds one way or another to just dazzle all across this record. Genuinely an album that had people comparing it to In Rainbows, and I truly do not even think it's that much of an exaggeration. And yeah, of course, all of that is present here across this EP. 4 great tracks, 2 singles that just, oh my God. Every time you think that she just can't continue to operate on such a high level, you get a song like Where to Look, or even better, Cold Heart. Holy shit. Look out for that one on the singles list, because it's goddamn one of her best songs ever. Yeah, she was an artist to me that I just think had a major breakout last year in terms of releasing amazing material. And this EP picks up right where I left off. If you listen to that record and you enjoyed it, please do not miss this. Please do not skip over it. This is not a B-sides collection. She took these songs that were originally from that recording session and didn't make it, and reworked them in the image of the tour for her previous record. And you can tell the subtle ways that she was learning and advancing this sound already. So excited for what she does next. Do not miss this EP. However, frankly, there was never really that much of a discussion of what the top of this list was going to be in my brain. And unfortunately, this one is a little bit contentious, which is a shame for the top of the list to be contentious. Not at all for music reasons. I would actually argue among the people that heard this, it's one of the most beloved releases of the year. A lot of you probably already know what I'm talking about, but more just whether or not it was an EP in the first place. It's EP sized and length. Is listed as an EP on streaming services, but the band kind of talks about it as if it's an album more substantial of a follow-up, I guess, to the EP that they had released previously. So if you're heated about this being counted on the EP's list, just know it would have been a shoo-in top 10 album, because this thing is miles and miles ahead of any other EP I heard this year, and it contains some of the most fucking amazing music I've heard this whole goddamn decade. Of course, I am talking about the unbelievably beautiful combination of scrams, lo-fi screamo, and samba and genres of world music put together brilliantly by the band Ginger Bee on their EP Apiary. Yep, EP of the year for me, and frankly, a shoo-in. This thing is just remarkable. Ginger Bee are a band that is basically what a self-described like internet-based project of people living in different cities all over the place. Literally, this project is assembled from like sending files back and forth of different vocal takes and instrumentation. But wow, does it just burst with a liveliness that contrasts with that story. This thing is fucking incredible. I just mean, Ginger Bee had already carved out such a unique place in the DIY Screamo and Scrams world for their ability to interpolate all of these other musical styles and influences and instruments into their world. And this just takes that to the perfect conclusion. This album, it takes the sort of twinkliness born of Midwest emo to such a dazzling, sunny conclusion. There are so many moments on this record that are leaning into the gentler vocal styles on tracks like Feels Like Children, or even the samba instrumentation on the like samba-ass samba song here. And they sound bright, beautiful, life-affirming. And so when it's time for crackling, clipping instrumentation and squealed, screeched screamo vocals to cascade over those sounds, it is just incredible. It's incredible how good it sounds. It's incredible how meaningful the contrast feels and how the two sides of this sound work back into each other and add up to something so unwaveringly magnificent. Yeah, I mean, I could talk about this all day. I think it's near perfect. I think every single song is fantastic. I may very well be flying out to Chicago to catch this band's last show ever, as they call it. And if that means that we never get any more material from Ginger Bee, goddamn, what a fucking note to go out on. This might be, if you call it an EP, this might be my favorite EP of the whole fucking decade, dude. I would say the other Scrams EP that is sort of heralded as such a masterpiece, being the self-titled Your Arms Are My Cocoon, I just think Apiary could stand right next to it. And so if that sounds audacious to you, all I can say is listen to it, and I'm pretty sure it will win you over. And that's it for me for this one, and good timing, because I'm ready to be done talking 10 EPs. If you listen to any of these, please tell me in the comments what you think of them. Tell me what EPs I am missing that I'm going to regret not putting on this list one day when they're super famous and beloved. And stay tuned, because unless a meteor hits Earth or it becomes illegal to be transgender very soon, then I plan on doing several more videos this month, including a best debut albums of the year, best singles, best albums, and then eventually circling back around to cover the best and worst hit songs of the year, and what are always some of the most work-heavy but fun videos to put together. Look forward to all of that. Thank you for watching. Mwah.